What is the scariest theory known to man?
Not really a theory, but being the oldest person alive. There's just something so chilling about the fact that literally every human that existed at the time of her birth is now dead except for her. She's the last of the human race in her snapshot of time.
It'd be wild to live life as a completely normal person for the vast majority of it, but be thrown into fame at the very end. You'd hit your 70s and 80s to see the cohort of people you grew up with begin to drastically thin out. In your 90s, you'd probably lose the last person you knew during your childhood. Then you live another 20 years after that.
Cold death of the universe. That the speed at which the universe is expanding is to the point where gravity will never pull it back. Matter will spread out and cool down and decay until everything, everywhere, just stops. Forever.
So the universe is essentially a firework? Edit, I'm genuinely surprised how many Katy Perry stans this comment drew out of the woodwork lol.
The dual consciousness theory disturbed me when I read about it. Basically, in my limited, layman understanding, a corpus callusotomy is a procedure that is sometimes used to treat conditions like epilepsy, where the connection between the two halves of the brain is severed. People can survive this and continue to live semi-normally, but usually with some cognitive impairments. Both halves of the brain continue to be alive, but there is little to no communication between the two sides. People who undergo the procedure can also exhibit some strange phenomena like alien hand syndrome, where the patient feels like some of their limbs will move on their own accord. They can also have difficulty controlling their non-dominant hand, trouble speaking, and issues with certain parts of their vision. The dual consciousness theory posits that both halves of the brain retain a consciousness after this procedure. Essentially, you become two people sharing the same body, completely unaware of each other. One variation of the theory is that one half of the brain is dominant, controlling most bodily functions, while the other half is basically cut off from most external stimuli, unable to communicate with the outside world, for the rest of their life. Edit. ***, just editing this to add that obviously this is only a theory and may not be correct. Also, even with the concerns around the operation, I can totally understand parents choosing this for their kids. Epilepsy can be a debilitating disease and this could be the only option. My sister had epilepsy and thankfully she got over it with medication, but it is brutal. Not everyone who has this operation has the side effects that I described, many of them lead normal lives. I'm not disturbed by people who have had this operation, just by the implications the theory could have for consciousness in general.
I've heard this before and gone down many a thinking path on it. Our brains are such incredibly complex things.
Potential answer to the Fermi paradox: we've never seen evidence of an alien civilization because no intelligent life survives long after the discovery of nuclear weapons.
All these theories are concerning, but most of them would kill us immediately without us noticing, and that's fine. Realizing we're going to die as a civilization in a matter of hours, days is what freaks me out the most.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer a dark comet moving at relativistic speeds to just smear us in a millisecond than to see it coming months or years in advance. Christ, imagine a world where you know a big space rock will come kill you all in about 50 years. Civilization would destroy itself long before the rock arrives.
The fact that it would take 8 minutes for Earth to know that the Sun exploded and it could have exploded 7 minutes ago.
Earth would maintain orbit for those 7 minutes too.
Just the concept of infinity, eternity. Regardless of who's correct about what happens when you die, it's terrifying. Either the lights go out for good and your consciousness is lost forever, or the afterlife is a never-ending Groundhog's Day scenario. Gives me anxiety sometimes if I think too deep about it. I had a breakdown in Sunday school some 20-odd years ago about it, and the deacon told me that heaven was so amazing and perfect that eternity was a blessing. I didn't buy it. Having it all end is immensely frightening. Having it never end seems worse.
If there is a good afterlife, I imagine it would have to exist in such a way that upon entering it and being free of our bodies and monkey brains, our perceptions would expand to the point where eternity is no longer a terrifying concept. Remember that our ability to fear and have anxiety are all biological pressures.
Well, thanks people, now I have found another rabbit hole that will keep me entertained.
I heard on another thread about what would be the scariest thing found at the bottom of Mariana's Trench, and someone said the top of a skyscraper.
I chose rapture.
The theory of proton decay, where every single bit of baryonic matter will eventually just spontaneously dissolve into radiation and fundamental particles, Guaranteeing that there will be no survivors at the end of the universe is, yeah, terrible.
Genuinely asking here, isn't the impending, but incomprehensibly far in the future, heat death of the universe a fairly widely shared, well-grounded theory at this point? I'm not sure if the two were actually interchangeable, so maybe this is a moot point. I don't know poo about poo, so please feel free to ignore me.
That our consciousness doesn't actually direct our actions, but just makes up stories to explain our actions to itself. Consciousness might not even be useful to our evolution, it could just be a weird phenomena that came about as our brains became more complex and developed more self-monitoring systems.
False vacuum decay, link. In quantum field theory, a false vacuum is a hypothetical vacuum that is stable, but not in the most stable state possible. It is metastable. It may last for a very long time in that state, but could eventually decay to the more stable state, an event known as false vacuum decay. The most common suggestion of how such a decay might happen in our universe is called bubble nucleation. If a small region of the universe by chance reached a more stable vacuum, this bubble, also called bounce, would spread. Solipsism. Basically, there's no way to prove that anyone other than yourself actually exists. You can dive deeper if you like, it's actually pretty interesting.
My dad's friend believes this. He's essentially seen enough therapists that he just finds it easier to go with the illusion. He has a wife. He loves her. He 100% believes she's not real. She's aware of this, and for some reason takes him as he is. He's a really nice guy. He seems incredibly content. Like if this is what the Matrix is giving him, he may as well find joy in it.
I've heard about people like this. It's wild how powerful the mind is.
That a more stable form of vacuum exists AMD. If it did, we would collapse into it. It could be headed towards us now and we literally would never know it's coming.
And naturally, the unfathomable horror of this completely inescapable, even completely unknowable terror that could have theoretically happened in the time it took me to finish typing this sentence is given the suitably awe-inspiring name of false vacuum decay.
That at any moment at any given time some unknown cosmic thing could come from outer space and wipe us out in a blink, i.e. vacuum decay or gamma ray burst. Even our sun could just produce a huge enough solar storm and we are basically doomed.
It's scarier if you think about the fact things unimaginably far off could do this, and due to the length of time it would take to reach Earth, might have already happened and we wouldn't know it yet.
Music theory.
The theory that f's with me the most is that space is infinite. I can't wrap my head around the idea of something having no boundary or end, and it creeps me out that it's possible. Edit. All of these replies have been super fun to read and the upvotes blew up too. Anyway, thanks for the replies and upvotes guys, you all have a place in the infinite space of my heart lol.
I might butcher this, but I think there is a theory that space is finite but boundless in 3 dimensions. Hawking discusses this in A Brief History of Time. Similar to how to a 2-dimensional being sitting on a sphere, the sphere would seem to go on forever, but in reality it is just their inability to perceive the 3rd dimension that they are unable to recognize it as a sphere. We may well be in a similar scenario. What we perceive as boundless nothingness may just be a hypersphere that could be perceived as a well-defined finite shape from a 4th-dimensional perspective. I think one of the stranger implications of this theory is that if we shot a rocket out into space, it could theoretically make it back to Earth even if traveling in a straight line.
This is the correct thread for bedtime.
Ha ha ha, good lord, I was just thinking that. Why did I look? Why do I always have to look?
The Great Filter. The idea that we see no other civilizations out in space because they hit some wall that made them go extinct. Whatever it may be, it could be the reason we see no intelligent life out there. The question is, are we past the filter, or is the worst still to come?
Damn, between this and the Dark Forest answer, I think the correct answer to OP's question is the Fermi paradox, and any answer Kurzgesagt has given to it.
Quantum immortality. If correct, it guarantees that you will never die. It guarantees nothing else asterisk.
Wouldn't you still die if something happened that was impossible to survive? Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't quantum immortality mean if it's possible to survive something then you will survive no matter how slim the chances are?
It also means that if there's a possible series of events that avoids getting into the unsurvivable situation, you won't get into it.
What if our understandings of physics and science, what we base our whole lives around, is just wrong? A man born without eyes cannot see, What if we are missing a huge chunk of reality, simply due to an inability to detect it?
Greater than what if we are missing a huge chunk of reality, simply due to an inability to detect it? This seems incredibly likely to me. Our senses evolved for survival, not necessarily for accurate perception of reality. The idea that the uncanny valley is because of the ancient hominins we used to interact with during the Pleistocene. Sure, there were interbreeding events, but imagine if you had no idea what a Neanderthal or a Denisovan were and saw one for the first time. You and your family have been traveling far from home and seek refuge in a cave for the night. You get a fire going, everyone starts to relax. Then out of nowhere, this almost human-looking being walks up. You all panic and run. Reacting with fear was probably the easiest way to make it out of an encounter like that alive.
Imagining this with a modern context gives me the effing willies, good lord.
Eternal recurrence suggests that this universe will be reborn again over and over endlessly, and so we will also be forced to relive the same life just as many times. Take a moment to consider your odds of being here, now, with infinite time before and after you. Edit. The wheel of time turns.
Yeah, but if you don't know, what difference does it make?
If you get blasted with a ton of radiation, your body instantly dies. But you will keep living for a while. Potentially weeks, like the Japanese nuclear plant worker who took more radiation than anyone else in history. Your DNA will shatter throughout your body, meaning as cells die, they will never be replaced again. Your body essentially starts rotting while you're still using it.
Don't scare me, bro.
That we may live the same life over and over without knowing.
The dark forest theory, that there are lots of other advanced civilizations out there in space, but they're concealing their presence because they know how suicidally dangerous it is to be broadcasting your planet's location out to the universe. Edit. Every variation on the reply, "Yeah, I watched that Kurtz Gesocht video too," has been commented about 100 times now. Save yourselves the wear and tear on your favorite thumb, guys. While I have your attention, I'd like to recommend the excellent YouTube channel, Quinn's Ideas, whose video regarding the dark forest principle I did actually recently see.
Or there's an advanced species that essentially seeks out and eliminates all other intelligent life, which is why we haven't heard from them. And we are just waiting our turn to be discovered by the hunters. Aliens Alien Theory by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's say intelligence is your ability to compose poetry, symphonies, do art, math and science. Chimps can't do any of that, yet we share 99% DNA. Everything that we are, that distinguishes us from chimps, emerges from that 1% difference. Imagine a life form whose brainpower is to ours is to a chimpanzee's. To such a species, our highest mental achievements would be trivial. Their toddlers, instead of learning their ABCs on Sesame Street, would learn multivariable calculus on Boolean Boulevard. Our most complex theorems, our deepest philosophies, the cherished works of our most creative artists, would be projects their schoolkids bring home for mom and dad to display on the refrigerator door. Scary.
That theory that you're a bitch if you make 2 trips to carry in your groceries.
Last Thursdayism. Basically that the entire universe was created last Thursday, and everything that is ancient has just been made to appear so. In reality, everything in the universe is only a week or so old. Link.
I like the one about how the existence of the uncanny valley implies that at some point there was an evolutionary reason to be afraid of something that looked human but wasn't. Learn about the uncanny valley, link. Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.